Welcome, everybody. We are back in live for another Baseline Show Office Hours.
Yeah, thanks for joining us in the live studio audience, or for those who watch us live or in the future. As an office hours, this will just be our usual go with the flow show. We'll see what's going on within our community, as well as just news outside and around it. First off, Ryan, how are things going in your neck of the woods?
Hey, things are great. Tons of cool things going on with Provide Eco. Which if you're not familiar with, which is our sustainability offering, through Provide Payments. And we had a great exhibition of Provide Eco at the Sallow Camp Demo Day. We were among the top 10 teams there. Got to speak a little bit both about our integration to Refi, but also role of ZK with emissions reporting, and how that could enhance businesses' ability to really verify and track their emissions, particularly in the Scope 3 context, when you're dealing with different parts of the value chain, from customers or suppliers further up or downstream. So great event there. If you are an Ethereum person, you should kind of dig Celo, because they are deep into the Ethereum roadmap themselves. So really endorse the Celo Camp Accelerator. Had a great experience there. Met a ton of really cool projects, some of which I think are going to be cool ones to have on the show later on, and many good partnerships and great things ahead on that front. So that's what's new with me here. And more to come yet on Eco. Every day is an exciting day of new partnerships, new customer opportunities. So great stuff there. Sustainability is a really fast moving area.
Awesome.
And I would add too, I think our progress on interop is going really well, right? Overall. So we are just beginning to put some new artifacts into the GitHub repo, in terms of new things that bring BRI3 and BRI1 closer together, and make sure we're aligned on the underlying standard, because I think that's what we care about, is advancing the standard in a way that makes it very vendor neutral and very easy for enterprises to adapt, and with a use case that matters greatly overall. There's a great this is my niche, like entertainment, but there is a comedian on Instagram/TikTok who does true stories from accounting, and would be great for kind of exhibiting some of the funny things that our use case for the Interop Fest actually really addresses, in terms of validity of payment methods, traditional fiat methods over digital ones. So that's everything off the top of my head. How about you, Mark? Anything cool from you?
As far as what's going on within the broader world, I keep hearing a whole bunch of other people that are really starting to really understand the whole thing around zero knowledge, and especially around multi-party coordination and synchronization. And this is really being driven by, there's a whole flurry of mergers and acquisitions. And when you've got a company that's acquired that has its own back end and technology systems, how do you handle the integration so that you can at least have some type of operational integrity? Zero knowledge is perfect for that, because it's like, we can go ahead and synchronize your systems. We can basically sharing proofs of the data, and it's then relied upon by everybody during the course of the integration. But trying to tie all these siloed systems together, and acquisitions is making that is really driving that. The big thing that you run into is everybody talks about making the acquisition and all the economic benefits that you can have about it, but a lot of times they don't really spend any time on how the sausage is made, how is that actually put into, some type of shared architectural operational um, standpoint. So zero knowledge is getting a lot more attention right now. Um, and really, you're starting to see a lot of businesses, and I think some of it might have been from the pandemic because it really forced a lot of people to become resourceful. We've got to extend our technological reach to remote office work, our remote teleworking as it is, and they're just really starting to realize that, hey, while we're having to extend this extra functionality, let's take a look at our systems and see, hey, can we actually do this with what we have, or was it going to take to actually make it happen? And there really isn't an easy workaround. And so another thing, this is where zero knowledge comes into play. And and of course, Chat GPT has just been really dominating a lot of the attention right now because it's slick. I mean, it's really almost too easy to go ahead and just enter in a couple of query sentences, and then it will give you a very cogent, a very well written um, summary output, which it's almost too easy. But you have to start looking at the governance and the risk and the legal ramifications. Did that output happen with data that was sourced properly, sourced ethically? And what are you using with that output? Because you have to rely upon it if you're going to make a statement, and you had Chat GPT just make that statement for you. You need to really start to think about, hey, did all of the data, was that responsibly and ethically sourced? Because right now it's just scrubbing the web and generating an output from that. So expect to be watch the space when it comes to governance around the data sharing and around what do you do with this output from Chat GPT. So because I've read some of the outputs from it and stuff, and you can't tell the difference whether it was written by a human or whether it was written by the algorithm. So so really watch that space a lot more. So that's really what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, I've noticed this out of the SAP world because in addition to sustainability, when SAP had their big Sapphire event, here last month, they unveiled a lot of Chat GPT integrations. Now, what they emphasized though was that you're not using the same open LLM language learning model that everyone else is using. You're using a kind of a siloed one that's being provided to you by SAP. So they're actually selling you, they're selling you ChatGPT, but just in a different hosted environment on different training data. That's how they kind of think about how to overcome some of those compliance issues. Overall is to just commercialize it and silo it, right? In terms of the what kind of instance you're actually interacting with, right? But to bring it back to baseline, right? I think whenever I'm talking to businesses or pitching to investors about how what it is, I try to focus on the problem it solves rather than the underlying technology. The technology is cool. There's people really into that, but it's about someone with an Excel spreadsheet who's trying to verify if the bill of lading is correct, but they can't get into their customer's ERP system to verify it, right? Or in let's say defense, right? If you have a when you're applying for a clearance, multiple agencies have to verify very sensitive personal information, manually, right? How do you introduce methods to reduce errors? Because the way you can drive a metric around this, right, is what is the cost of errors, data errors for an organization? What's it worth to you to improve your data quality, right? So now you're talking about actual problem solving, right, to an organization rather than trying to introduce an exotic new technology to them, right?
Right.
Because anytime you're talking to like a CIO, CFO, and they have a very tight schedule of everything they got to do this year, they love the emerging technologies, but when it comes to actually putting a budget and putting people's attention on it, they have to be really sure they can execute. So that's a few other insights from my world in terms of, how is baseline getting positioned, to companies, to enterprises elsewhere.
Well, one of the big things that I commonly emphasize is the baseline is a way, if you have a project that's been running for the past couple of years and it's 100% blockchain based and in the private permission type model, and you're wondering if it's ever going to get off the rails, if it's going to be able to handle the scaling, if it's going to be able to handle the massive data replication that happens depending on how large the process environment is. This is a way that we can actually save your bacon, because you're using your existing systems. And one of the big hard questions at the beginning of any blockchain project that I rarely see ever asked is, where is this going to fit in the overall architecture? Is it going to sit within the ERP system? Is it going to be a parallel integration that's going to be operating? And so now you have a duplication of data, plus you're introducing a massive new threat surface, massive new honeypot, to where hackers can just go ahead and access that. And it's continually updated, so they have the freshest copy of the ledger to do with it whatever they want. And people are like, I can't do this. And I'm like, well, fine, use your existing systems, but snatch that low-hanging fruit of the simple aspect of just coordinating and synchronizing all of your existing systems, and how much operational friction that is going to counter. This is it's really interesting to see how so many of the people out there are still trying to say, well, blockchain's still going to be the path forward and stuff. And I'm like, well, until we get there, you need something else that's going to allow you to maintain operational integrity and probably let you remain employed. So that's another big thing that you're seeing within baseline is, if you have a private permissioned, especially in the private permission model of blockchain project that just really you're having trouble getting to that next step and stuff, consider baseline, because this is a way that we can help you achieve most of your metrics just with a much more lightweight, less invasive type of integration than if you were trying to spin up an entire blockchain offering. One thing that I'm seeing, so.
Mm-hmm.
You seeing the same thing, Ryan? Or
Yeah, it's really like this. I think a large number of enterprises today really don't have any blockchain capability at all, right?
Mhm.
And to even step back from baseline, their hang up typically is gas fees and maintaining assets in a wallet of any kind, right?
Right.
That whether it's public permission, it's what they really need is something that's like a wallet as a service, right? Where
Yeah.
it handles all the transactions and gets those funded, but
Yeah.
they just pay for it like a SaaS type model. Which, by the way, that is provide payments. That is Vault. That's our operating model around eco in particular, right? Where any of these wallets that are being used for, in this case for eco, like carbon retirements, when they do the API integration to do the carbon retirement, they're funded on the spot, but that wallet for that customer never has to hold any funds, right? And it should go the same way as well for baselining for generation of proofs, right? If there's any gas fees associated to a network to that, completely abstract that away, right? And by the way, do that in a way that the speculation of the price of the token doesn't matter to you. The gas fees should be so low that whether, let's say your Matic token, for instance, whether it's 60 cents, $6 or $60, right? that network's going to operate the exact same way. Yes, there may be some variance in terms of what the actual USD cost is, but if that network that's built to handle, your specific task is optimized enough, every transaction should still only be a few cents or less even, right? I noticed here a really cool thing that Polygon's doing, that I'm following closely, is some changes to the proof of stake network with the ZK EVM, right? And introducing ways to you know handle large volumes, right? You see this on Polygon today, where even in the bear market, right? When there were times that, let's say with Lens, the social network Lens had a lot of high volume, you saw gas fees spike up a bit, right? Well, people didn't feel like paying like $1 to have some interaction with Lens, right? So even Lens thought about like a layer 3, right? So this transaction scaling is still something to work out, right? It's something that the Provide network's built to help solve for, but that that's other things going on, right? It's the efficiency of handling large amounts of information at once, the ZK rollup of data, if you will. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anybody else have anything to? I'm starting to see identity start to be, finally, they're starting to pay a lot more attention to it, because you're seeing a lot of these metaverse projects, Web3 projects that are, they're starting to do something really cool about it. And either for digital twin or for prototyping, or just, hey, we're going to be a kid with an ant farm, and we're going to have our little metaverse world that people can come in and interact with other users in this computer generated environment. And I'm like, well, that's great, but for this really to get kicked off, you need to have a couple of core elements that are very crucial to the success of this. And number one is going to be identity, and the second one is going to be medium of exchange. And these need to be portable and interoperable across different platforms and across different, however the metaverse project is being hosted. And you're starting to see some development when it comes to how the functionality of the user, to where I can I control my data. I and I alone can decide who benefits from it. And when I exit your platform, I want to invoke my right to be forgotten, and any residue that I leave back has to be scrubbed once I leave the portal. And people are starting to think about this, and they're starting to look at, hey, it's really having to rely on somebody else or a third party to prove that you are you. And it can be done digitally. This is really starting to finally get a lot more of attention, to where it's like, hey, this is great. Not only are you creating this little kind of virtual world, but now you're creating a way that people can interact with others within that virtual world, how they can exchange ideas or even value between the two. So the whole W3C, the DID and the verified credential standard, it's really encouraging to see a lot of that move along. Just from a philosophical and structural standpoint, to where you generate so much data just by going through the course of your life, and people are harvesting it, and they are using it for marketing insights, and there's a lot of money that is flowing around there, but it doesn't seem to be flowing back to the user. So how can the user say, look, this is my data, it has value, and I want to be able to be incentivized to actually share my data flow, my data feeds. So
yeah, I think it's even a user experience thing, just in general, right? So you'll notice that this idea of rather than trying to make everything into a dApp, rather than trying to necessarily decentralize everything, how do you weave the blockchain into user experiences that are already common to like enterprise users or consumers, right? And
Mhm.
you have some composability to identity. That's DIDs, right? DIDs are are meant to kind of, unify these different identity paradigms, between the Web 2, Web 3 world. Something I think if you look carefully at the large organizations, the Accentures, the Deloittes, the Tatas, IBMs of the world, you'll notice they have an equal focus on identity as much as blockchain, probably more an identity than blockchain in many cases, right? Because they have to think about it through that lens of that user experience of what's the identity paradigm. And what's apart from the whole blockchain space, identity is just a big topic because there's no, other than DIS, there's no universal identity standard that companies
Right.
operate on. Kind of a Google, like a Google thing, maybe a Microsoft account thing, but that's why you see Microsoft do projects like Untra, right? Because
Mhm.
they're thinking ahead. They're thinking ahead to decentralized identity, right? As this common standard of which how all identity is processed.
Yeah.
But
Well,
in a user centric, privacy preserving way, not in a creepy overlord way. Hopefully, can't speak for
well,
everyone.
well, I mean, it's similar. I mean, because you're starting to, when people realize that, especially in the B2B space, that identity is not something that's just, an afterthought or trivial. Um, I'm seeing a lot of interest really coming out around the when it comes to the credentialing aspect, not only the granting and verifying, but also the revoking. We want to be able to revoke this credential at any given time. And like looking at large audit firms, a lot of your large um, accounting firms that are doing a lot of public financial reporting for publicly traded companies, and you will have team members that will work for a certain client for say a quarter, and then when they rotate off of that and onto another client, they want to make sure that the access credentials are revoked when that person leaves, so that you don't have any type of data leakage or anyone that might be able to have something that might be actionable and could sell to someone. So,
Access controls are more pivotal in enterprise systems than the common person would ever know. Like the people who work on like Oracle systems or SAP systems know this, but if you do anything in the production system, especially if it's going to have a direct financial impact outside of your normal role, right?
mhm,
It's very common to have to to go through a hierarchy to get a temporary access
yep,
and document precisely what you're doing,
yeah,
right? Because guess what that is? That's actually Sarbanes-Oxley, right?
yeah, yeah,
That's and Sarbanes-Oxley is still around. And companies, I've noticed this, even if they don't technically have to do Sarbanes-Oxley. I worked for a private company once that was exempt from Sarbanes-Oxley. They'll still do it anyway, right? Because they consider it good corporate governance, good IT governance to be SOX compliant, right? That's also if they want to sell their company too. Um, but that's access control is a must. It's not optional to have access control in enterprise systems at all.
and especially when you're talking about the people that are managing that function, because the access control, just what it is and how it's cool is one thing, but it's the key management. And especially it's like, so many people have to or somebody opened an email attachment and now I've got to change 550 passwords today. You know, and um it's really um the whole key management where you're gonna have people going, oh, I've got to change my password because I forgot it, or whatever. Um it's just such a tall order for any small to medium enterprise that does not have a dedicated team for that, even if you have a large enterprise, just because you've got a lot more keys that you have to manage. This is where having the whole um, kind of self-sovereign, the verified credential aspect, to where you can basically prove and using the blockchain as that root of trust, or any type of append only type repository that everybody is agreeing to use. It doesn't necessarily have to be a blockchain. However, blockchain is probably going to make a lot of the future functionality as it comes on board a lot more compelling, I guess. So
Yeah, this speaks to a lot of like how Provide Vault actually works, right? Because it allows you to have access tokens and have revocable access tokens around, different cryptographic functions, including wallets, but not limited to wallets, right?
right.
So you could, sign it, encrypt or decrypt or sign or verify certain information with public keys that are associated to you in your vault instance, but you don't have to necessarily possess those keys directly, right, at any given time, right? So you can revoke access to those keys in the enterprise landscape,
Yeah.
right? So that's huge because, relative to, let's say, a digital wallet, right? If I have a private key of a digital wallet, technically, if it's a company, if I have it directly in my possession, I could embezzle money out of the company. I could just steal the key and just take it elsewhere, right? So if you can abstract away keys but still have them usable in a way, in an access controlled way, is really great for companies, not just for blockchain, but also for those other things, of those other cryptographic keys that they have to sign and verify information with anyway, right? Um, a lot of companies, large companies, don't have a good way other than, like, let's say LastPass, to try to manage passwords, but it's not very programmable,
Well, and
actually.
everybody's trying to move to multi-factor authentication just as a necessity, and they're really not thinking about the user impact, the user experience, because it's
You
you have
this
abandoned.
this you do see, though, that if if you work for a large company, you probably have like Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator, the things like HR sites that
Sure.
they tell you to set up, right? So that's the state of like key management today. Now the trickier, scary thing is you can't lose that key phrase they gave you, because they can't get it back to you at any given
Right.
time. They could try
Right.
to set you up with a new one, but
But you're not going to be able to port your old stuff into it
mhm.
unless they have something. I mean, it's interesting to see how you've got a lot of people that will walk around just a piece of the puzzle instead of the entire thing, and then wonder why it kind of either gets stalled or doesn't move forward, because you didn't think about a lot of the other aspects that are going to become relevant. I mean, even within identity, when it comes to like with the verified credentials and the DIDs, you're really starting to have um, a lot of people talking about, hey, this is how we're doing this, and from the user standpoint, here is your whatever credential that you have, your degree, your certification, or whatever, and here it's going to be in your wallet. But we're not seeing what does that interface look like from the verifier side. Say I hold my phone out with a QR code saying, yes, I am 21, so I can buy this bottle of wine, or yes, I am. I have access to this area of, say, a healthcare campus. That sort of stuff. What does it look? I'm showing this to prove it. What does the verifying interface look like? And we need to see a lot more of those, because it's a two-sided ecosystem type approach, and you're going to need to have everybody on board and operating as they properly should. And people just need to know how that actually works. So a lot more verifier user interface is going to be something that we're going to need to see a lot more of, really, as you get the whole idea of self-sovereign identity, that I can prove that I am me to anybody and prove certain attributes, not just a test, but actually prove it. So that's one thing that a lot of people are finding, some of the, especially the security guys are finding a lot more attractive is this isn't just an attestation, it's an actual proof. So
Yeah,
a greater degree of confidence that this person is who they are and whatever their purpose um, they're executing is what we were supposed to have them do.
yeah.
So
I think one interesting thing is, and I'll have to verify these facts as well, but the DIDs themselves don't necessarily require a blockchain. They don't require that at all, right? So there's, two kinds of broad user experiences you could do in this verifying. One is, very Web3 centric, which is very externally friendly, to like larger networks of people. And one is more internal, right? Where it may still be within a corporate network or set of corporate networks. I think that's what John Wolpert really would love to see, is a totally non-blockchain iteration of ZK and enterprise apps. So um, I think both will be out there, right? For because they'll meet different kinds of needs out there. Uh, but that's you're right, Mark. The need for good user experiences around this is actually really pivotal overall.
yeah, yeah. And it's similar to where, I mean, we tell everybody, it doesn't necessarily have to be a blockchain. Although blockchain does have a lot of its native capabilities are well suited for this, there is a computational cost, especially if you're using a public architecture, which is probably going to need to be necessary when it comes to um, credential verifying and having that root of trust. Instead of having that single source of truth, we basically will have this root of trust. And a lot of people, even just on a simple functional level, are like, how do I prove that I am me? How do I do that trust, and how do you know that that's verified? I'm like, well, I can basically say that I'm a PhD researcher or something like that, but my word isn't enough. I need to have somebody attest that what I have is actually valid.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to need to be able to prove, yes, I did. Here's my university degree. This is where it's come from, and it's issued in a format that is commonly recognizable and accepted by any verifier system.
Mhm.
So,
I,
but
I think
another thing that's really starting to emerge out of the mist within identity is it doesn't have to be a human being. You're seeing a lot of this with vehicles that needs to have a presence and needs to show interaction with with users, with other cars, wherever. If it's within smart cities, are you working in an allocated paid for parking space? That sort of thing.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are like going, wait, what? How can a car be a person? I'm like, it's not a person, but the car has an identity.
Yeah, it has a VIN number. It has a
It's a
state
VIN.
registration as a manufacturer, all of that. I think the general idea though is, regardless of what system it is make the same assumptions of an adversarial environment,
Yeah,
actually, right?
yeah.
Because one thing I think every software engineer or a person who's ever deployed to blockchain, they think about the adversarial environment
Mhm.
at a deep level, because it's like, if this messes up, I can't change the code. It's immutable, right? You have to even that's good thinking to trickle into the enterprise space, right? Because you had adversarial things like with SolarWinds, with other different data breaches inside of companies, right? So you know with that perspective of adversarial environment, assume that every single network, someone's going to try to barge the gate. What are your protections of this for everything, right? Regardless of how you
Well,
deploy your architecture.
that's kind of how they actually think. Because security people have to be defensive only. They can't be offense. They can't attack. They can only defend.
What they can do, if you talk to some good security guys, that they're really good at creating great honeypots, like of like just create it, like they'll create they'll deliberately create soft targets in their network architecture
Mhm.
to figure out what kind of attacks might come to the actual core network, right? They'll
Yeah.
just put they'll just put junk out there. They won't put anything of value out there, but they'll just watch and see, like, okay, what kind of tricks is someone going to try to play with my firewall here?
It's basically phishing, not
Eh,
PH, but phishing, like a phishing. Let's throw this out and see who's gonna bite.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm sure as well. Some people have this happen where your employer tries to do fake phishing attacks against you.
Oh yeah.
Does Consensus do that to you guys ever?
Not that I've seen, but at my old company, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
I was gonna say the same. We used to get just straight garbage emails, and then you'd click report, and it'd be like, "Good job, you did it. You didn't fall for it."
Mhm.
No, you
They could
gotta
be
let it.
they could be really evil with those things, man. Like, especially if they start sending them to your personal email, because like sometimes you get weird emails and you're just like, I have no idea what this is, but I'm gonna check it out anyway. But uh, the you still got to have that high awareness of those things, because people will try to even just test you, just to shit test you.
Well, and to their point, they're all like, "Why can't I get people just to use an element of common sense?" And don't open an attachment, don't click on any link within the email, go to it directly. Oh well, I don't want to, it's too much of a pain, I just want to go see if this is okay. Well, this is what this is why you keep people like the security guys employed.
Well, there's certain things though that are legitimate, but they're hard to verify. Let's say like with a healthcare claim, right? You get a notification from, I dealt with this lately where I got a bill from some medical provider that wasn't a hospital, was some other thing, right? And I had to look at this very carefully. I had to spend a lot of time personally, going back through my claims of like, is this valid, or is someone just trying to get like $1,000 off of me? Right? It's a tricky thing, because it's like that's a very easy phishing thing to send people fake medical bills to say, go to our payment portal and fill this out, right? Um, you appeal to someone's emotions. Past due, please pay immediately, right? It's always that's when you always know you're dealing with a scam. Like, that's a good like check if you're dealing with a scammer. If someone's like, you absolutely have to do this now, it's the end of the world. I don't know, but that's there's some tips there, and of how to control your emotions if you think someone's trying to scam you somewhere, because they'll try to change yours.
Yeah, scamming is interesting. They're actually getting really good at it. My favorite one is where they try to get to know you and then push stuff on you.
Mhm. Uh,
Classic one is you get a random text and that's not meant for you, and then they apologize and then they start up a convo. That's a classic one.
mhm. I do feel though that like my spam filter, like maybe the language learning model, my spam filter is not so great, because I feel like I get a lot of spam that gets through to my regular inbox, but I get a lot of legitimate ones that accidentally land in spam at the
Oh, for
same.
emails, I was just talking about text messages, like SMS
or
messages.
or yeah, text messages too. Like, it's any kind of communication, right? In terms of um you know, a scam will always come with some emotional urgency of some kind of like, you have to do this now or we'll shut off your account or
Oh
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Those are the those are easy ones, right?
Yep.
They're like classic.
We
Um,
we have been trying to reach you about your vehicle.
Your car's
I've been
extended warranty.
like trying to talk to all of you about your extended warranty. You guys just don't answer.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
now I got you on. Now I got Keith here.
Just like yeah, he's at it and it's extended warranty, right?
Yeah. Got him.
That's how I know it's fake. I don't extend any of my warranties.
He doesn't have warranty. That's the point.
Yeah.
Nice haircut, dudes. By the way.
You too.
Mhm,
Yeah, it's a very complicated one.
mhm.
No, but
I miss I
I'm
miss
sorry,
the
go
days
ahead.
of the scams just being like the Nigerian prince. You know, your uncle has a whole bunch of gold, but he can't get it to the US with custom imports,
Yeah,
taxes. Just send me
yeah,
some money. Those were fun.
yeah.
Now it's
Those
so
were.
elaborate.
Yeah, no, the real, the real ones are like really subtle, where you all of
Yeah.
a sudden get like a LinkedIn request, and if that individual has like under like 500 or 200 followers, it's like it's or zero, that's like a big red flag.
Mhm.
It's it's clear, like especially if you're male, then it's like it's always guaranteed to be a female. It's
Another scam I see in digital wallets. This was big last year, but it was someone listing out a seed phrase and like, guys, I have $300 in this wallet, and this is my seed phrase. I can't move it. Can anybody help me? Right? And the scam actually was for someone to restore the wallet and put gas in it, and then it would rug. Right? That's like they were appealing to people being like, oh, I'm so much smarter than this person, or I can help this person. Like that's easy, right? But you saw that. I don't see it as much anymore today, but you saw it a lot, right? Because you know, especially if you're doing anything with cryptocurrencies and your social media ever at all, you get put on a list that blasts all those scams to you, and you have to learn how to deal with them, right? But I saw that a lot. Was like, why is this? What's like? There's something weird about this, and I looked into it, and like found people said, oh yeah, like it's gonna rug as soon as you put some gas in there, right? That's how those contracts are set up.
also lovely Discord airdrop links that turn out to be that are actually your those are actually like transactions for your NFTs, right? That are then your sign approved.
Yeah, I think the whole space of airdrops is now so risky that even if you think you have a legitimate one, the common person's not going to try to, the common digital asset investor is not going to try to touch any of it just because it's too like, there's so much spam on that. You see it trending on Twitter, like several million tweets at a time about Ethereum or something else. And they look like they use real project names, but it's totally a scam link out there for the airdrop. There's probably a usage of baseline somewhere for authenticating airdrops out there. So there's my free game to consensus there. There's a startup for you guys to go build is how to authenticate our airdrops. So
They need to they need to include a a snark or a stark that is actually that validates the address, right?
Mm-hmm. Pretty simple thing to do. It's just that, yeah, there's just so much garbage, so much spam that you can't really get through it on your own.
It's like okay, show me what's the transaction, what's the signature, what's the contract that I'm sending this to, blah blah, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. Unless you actually know solidity, it's like you basically have no chance.
Yeah, that's why, kids, you always check the contract egress in Etherscan before you interact with it. If you have the skills to do that.
Yes.
Yep.
And get and check if the code's actually available and has been validated,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find this funny, like, because sometimes when you're on Etherscan, you for verified contracts, you can see the code, but sometimes you just get the bytecode for certain contracts. Like, I don't know what's behind that. I'm not the greatest Solidity expert in the world, but that's usually a good idea to see if you can find it, right? If there's like a little green check mark. So I usually look for an Etherscan as a little green check mark. I'm hoping not giving any hints away to scammers of what to get your scamming attacks better. But I look for the verified contract of with a name to it in terms of what it does.
You can just like have a fake Etherscan. Looks like Etherscan, does exactly like it. It's just puts the fake green check marks on the contracts.
Etherscan, like there's probably
Etherscan scam.
There's probably some spelling mistake to be made there.
Oh no, it's just you're just doing a reroute.
Yeah, I think this is also why there is an industry of people who do build custom Ethereum clients and custom block explorers, precisely for this reason, right? To meet certain exact people's total need to make sure that they're getting the right version of the chain in front of them at all times, right? Rather than just relying Etherscan. It's nice to have public infrastructure, but sometimes you're kind of looking out for yourself too. There you go. I just thought of the next like crazy narrative to make crypto go down. Etherscan is inaccurate, right? There you go. Etherscan wrong, right?
Etherscan is a scam. It actually never shows you the right thing. You also you always believed that it was the actual data from the chain, but it never was.
No, never was. The real Ethereum is somewhere else, right?
Ethereum's not real.
Just like how the real Bitcoin is not something is not Bitcoin, it's something else. That debate will always entertain me of what is the real Bitcoin? Who is the real inventor of Bitcoin? Is it Craig Wright? Is it BSV? Is it Bitcoin Cash? Which one is the real one?
Bitcoin Gold, or is Litecoin the real Bitcoin?
I don't think they try to make that claim, but I think I'm always impressed with how clever people get with Bitcoin and the regular like proof of work forks like Litecoin and Dogecoin. They find longevity. Actually, there's some really cool ZK things people with BSV have done, like writing escrow, like code with ZK with BSV that's wasn't present elsewhere. So people are trying to build it. People are trying to use it like real money.
Just
that-
use Zcash.
Yeah, no, yep.
Right? It's like if you want privacy preserving stuff, just use Zcash.
Yep.
Do we actually have, is there a Lightning? I don't think there's a Lightning network for like Zcash, is there?
I don't think so, but I had heard for a while that they were thinking about doing like a EVM style sidechain of Zcash, so they could do stable coins and other things, ZRC20s as they called them. But I'm not sure where that went at all.
So like RSK, but
Yeah,
it's but it's like again, it's like super hard. It as soon as you have like real smart contracts, like anything EVM compatible, or is your doing full privacy is a big problem, because you never really by yourself control the state, right?
Yeah.
So the key thing is that you have to be able to prove that you own an asset if you want to exit, for example, right? So the thing about like all the privacy preserving, or all the L2s are, I can always exit, right? The operator, L2 operator, can't stop me. Really, and the ZK rollup service could always say, well, all the data is on chain, so you can always prove that with an L1 transaction, you can always exit. So it's like there's censorship resistance. That only works in the UTXO model, right? Because you always control whatever unspent amount you have. You can always generate a Merkle proof that note that you have is included in the current state tree, right? That doesn't work for if you have like an ERC20 or something like that, right? Because because your balance is the state of your balance of whatever ERC20 token you have on the L2 is entangled with the state of all the other token holders. Right?
Yeah, this
so
is
it's super hard. You have to run your own EVM in order to be able to then produce the correct state root and everything, that I applied this transaction, here's the correct, and if you do this, and then you can verify. If you rerun the transaction on the operator EVM, then you can see that transaction was correct. It's like, but that requires that you run your own full node, basically.
Yeah, you're giving me you're giving away one of my best interview questions to blockchain experts. It's like this is how it really like test a technical expert on blockchain. Is like, what is the difference between the UTXO model versus the account model, right? That's what we're talking about here in terms of like how the actual networks operate in terms of like the account balances and such, right? So that's might fall that goes over some people's heads, but if you really spend the time in books reading about blockchains, you learn about that in terms of account versus UT.
Now the real question is Bitcoin is Bitcoin a stateless blockchain?
Is it?
No.
Can you have a stateless blockchain?
Yes.
What's an example, Andreas? What's a stateless one?
So a stateless one is where a stateless one is where the verifying nodes don't have the state. They're only verifying state updates and committing them to the chain, right? In the case of both Ethereum and Bitcoin, the nodes carry the entire state. So therefore both chains are stateful. However, the execution model of Bitcoin is stateless because it's a UTXO state, so it doesn't have to be maintained on chain.
Wouldn't
Only
the proof require a state?
huh?
Wouldn't the proof require a state?
Yeah, but you're keeping the state. You're keeping the execution is yeah. You keep the state on chain. That's why you have all the UTXOs, right? And the reason and the consequence of a stateless transaction model is that you need to have the entire chain always available in order to be able to prove the provenance of each unspent transaction output so you can go all the way back to the Genesis, like to wherever it was mined, Genesis block or wherever, right? Versus the transaction model of Ethereum is stateful because you're keeping data in smart contracts, right? So your transaction depends on data that is maintained by nodes, right? But it's not included in its current form in the blockchain. So that's the account model versus the UTXO model. A stateless blockchain has all only the users hold the state, right? So and that the problem with that is you're putting all the onus on state updates and refreshing their witness, right? Their knowledge of the state frequently. So and then you always get race conditions, right? Because if you and I have the same state, right, and I send a transaction in based on that state and it's processed, and you send one in that's processed on that state, right? Because the verifier only verifies that the state transition was correct, right? The new root that I generate, state root that I generate, is not the one that you generate, right? It's not valid. So your transaction will automatically fail, right? If it acts on the same state. It's if you have a smart contract that multiple parties, like in ERC20, right? It's like if the state is not maintained by the node, but by each participant in the ERC20, then you easily can get race condition. Because I update the state of the smart contract and you don't have the correct new state. Until you pull the new state root from the validation node and figure out what the new witness is. So it's very, 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 very difficult, and you have tremendous trade-offs, right? It becomes very complex for individual users to maintain that. That's why you have sort of like light clients that do that on your behalf, but it again becomes really, really, really difficult. And you have trade-offs. So it's and they're actually, you can prove what the trade-offs are and how severe they are. If you want to know the details, listen to attend my Duke class on advanced blockchain.
I dig it. Well, I'm right at the top of the hour here,
Yeah,
so
right.
probably over
Thank you
time.
all. Thank you all for engaging in such a great conversation. I didn't expect to take up the whole hour during this office hours, but that goes to show that there's always plenty to talk about. So thank you all for joining the live studio audience and those tuning in.
Thank you.
We will see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.